Okay, so in between the first movie and this, there is actually a short film called Turbocharged Prelude, where Brian just drives from LA to Miami and buys his Skyline. The movie begins at a street race where three racers, Slapjack, Suki and Orange Julius, are all waiting to race. But Tesh, the event organizer, won't let them race if they don't have 4 racers. So Tesh calls Brian to be the 4th racer and Brian ends up winning the race. But during the race, Tesh decides as a surprise to lift one side of a drawbridge, so the racers will have to do a jump. Brian, Slapjack and Suki do it, but I'm wondering why anyone would even do the jump. Since to participate in the race, everyone had to pay $3,500 and by doing some quick math, the winner would then get $14,000. And since the landings looked pretty aggressive, I would assume that it did damage to the car, and to fix the damage are well above the winning money. Right after winning, cops raid the place, and while trying to drive away, Brian's car gets hit by some electric clothing that disables his car, making Brian lose control and crash into a parking meter, which barely does any damage to the car. But in the next scene, the entire front of the car is destroyed, and Brian gets arrested. And despite the Skyline being arguably the most iconic car in the entire Fast and Furious franchise, it only appears for the first 15 minutes of this movie, and is mentioned like twice ever again. At the police station, Brian is offered a deal by his former boss, Agent Bilkins, to go undercover to try and arrest a drug lord named Carter Verone, and in exchange for doing this, his record will be wiped clean. But Brian only agrees if he gets to choose his own partner, and he chooses his childhood friend Roman Pierce. At first, Roman doesn't want anything to do with Brian, since when Brian first became a cop, he accidentally arrested Roman, which caused Roman to spend 3 years in jail and now have to wear an ankle monitor. But after hearing that his records will also be wiped clean and his ankle monitor will be removed, he agrees to help them. Back at the police station, they are briefed on their mission. They also meet Monica, who's been undercover and living at Verone's house for around a year, and they also get their cars. They drive over to Verone's house where they have to compete in an audition race to retrieve a package inside of an impounded car, and the first duo to bring it back gets the job. Before going, everyone has to give Monica their driving license so that Verone can check who they are. And in the short Turbocharged Prelude, we see Brian's face all over the news, and I find it hard to believe that a crime lord like Verone does to check the news and is able to recognize Brian. Brian and Roman are the first to get to the impound lot, but to get in, Brian drives through the gate to the entrance, and you can see the front of his car getting damaged, but when they stop, the car has no damage at all. Brian and Roman are able to grab the package, but that's when the other remaining racers and the cops show up, and Roman starts shooting at the cops. They drive over to Verone, who tells them that the job is to drive a package to the Florida Keys, and that they will have a 15-minute window with no cops, and that if they complete it, he will personally hand them $100,000. They later go over to Tesh's garage where they find out about a GPS in their cars, so to prevent the cops from interfering again and risking blowing their covers, Brian and Roman races and wins 2 more cars in a race for pink slips. The next day, Monica goes to Brian and tells him that the package will be delivered to an airstrip, and that Verone plans on killing Brian and Roman after the delivery. That's when 2 of Verone's henchmen show up looking for Monica, but thanks to Roman stalling them, Monica is able to get out without getting caught. As the 2 henchmen are leaving, a fight between Brian, Roman and the 2 henchmen break out, but before they shoot each other, Verone comes and de-escalates the situation and tells them that the 2 henchmen, Roberto and Enrique, will be riding with Brian and Roman to prevent any problems. Brian and Roman go to the cops and tells them what Monica told them about the delivery point and a plan to kill Brian and Roman after the delivery. Agent Bilkins thinks they should call off the operation, but the other cops think that they should still do it, and tells Brian and Roman that if they don't do it, they will be arrested. So Brian and Roman are left with an ultimatum that if they don't do it, they will go to jail, but if they do it, they will be killed. So they decide that we betray both Verone and the cops and get away with the money for themselves. On the day of the delivery, Brian and Roman's cars are filled with 3 duffel bags of money each, but the cop that promised them the 15 minutes doesn't give them the 15 minutes and sends all the cops to their area. To get rid of the cops, Brian and Roman drive into a warehouse where a bunch of cars drive out, confusing the cops and making them lose sight of Brian and Roman. When they all drive away, the cops are able to recognize Brian and Roman's cars and surround them, but out steps Suki and Tesh, since Brian, Roman, the henchmen and all the money switch to the cars they won earlier. On their way to the airstrip, Roman, with the help of some NAS, ejects Roberto from his car with the ejector seat, but right before Brian ejects Enrique, he reveals that they aren't going to an airstrip but down to a dock. There, Brian gives Verone 3 bags of money from his car, and Verone asks him if he knew anything about the agents that stormed his jet, to which Brian shakes his head. Verone reveals that he only told one person about the airstrip and that he knew Monica was an undercover cop and gave her false information. Verone then orders Monica to get onto his boat and for Brian to be killed. But before Enrique kills Brian, Roman comes and crashes into one of the cars, which distracts Enrique from shooting Brian, so Brian tries to take the gun. Roman drags them both out of the car and they both start kicking Enrique. And after realizing that Monica is dead if she stays on a boat, Brian and Roman decide to drive one of their cars off a ramp and land on the boat. And before Verone shoots them, Brian is able to shoot him, and before he can grab his gun again, Monica is able to take it. When they get back to shore, Verone gets arrested and Brian and Roman's records have been cleaned and the police are given the 6 bags of money. But of course not all of the money, as
pockets ain't empty, cuz. And we ain't hungry no more either, bruh.